But is that your thing? You come into a bar, you read some obscure passage, and then pretend you pawn it off as your own?
Some films arrive like a dare, not from a studio system built on sequels and safe bets, but from two unknowns who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. In 1997, a movie about a janitor, a therapist, and a chalkboard full of impossible equations became the most unlikely hit of the decade.
So, when are you done with those meetings?
Like the week after I'm 21.
Good Will Hunting wasn't supposed to work. Two actors with no credits wrote their own script, fought every studio in Hollywood, and somehow walked away with an Oscar. But behind the awards and the box office numbers lies a story stranger than anything on screen. Every great film has a hidden history, and Good Will Hunting's is one of the wildest in modern cinema. If you enjoy content like this, hit subscribe and drop a comment, because these are 20 insane facts you never knew. Number 20, the Yellowstone connection.
Something, brother.
You're embarrassing
to ask because it doesn't make any sense.
It does make sense if you listen to the story and quit asking questions.
Before Cole Hauser became one of the most recognized faces on television, he played Billy McBride, one of Will Hunting's tight-knit crew of South Boston friends. It was an early role for the actor, a supporting part that gave him just enough screen time to show a natural ease in front of the camera. Most audiences had no idea who he was. Decades later, Hauser would become a household name as Rip Wheeler on the hit series Yellowstone, but his roots trace back to that scrappy group of friends drinking at the L Street Tavern. Hauser once described the shoot as one of the best creative experiences of my life. Southie gave him his start. Yellowstone made him a star. Number 19, the director's secret brushstrokes.
Maybe you married the wrong woman.
Maybe you should watch your mouth.
The painting that hangs in Sean McGuire's office, the one Will tears apart during their first session, wasn't pulled from a prop warehouse. Gus Van Sant painted it himself. When Will delivers his cutting critique of the artwork, dissecting its meaning and the loneliness behind it, he's unknowingly attacking the director's own creation. Van Sant never told Damon. He just watched the scene unfold, knowing the irony belonged only to him. Van Sant later called directing the film probably the best written screenplay I had ever read. The art was personal. The attack was accidental. The irony was perfect. Number 18, Boston on a budget.
All right, who's first? Come on, who's first? Boy. Who's your present?
Good Will Hunting is a love letter to Boston. Its accents, its bars, its working-class pride. But a significant portion of the film was actually shot in Toronto. The production team initially scouted locations in Canada to double for both Harvard and MIT. It wasn't until Damon and Affleck insisted that certain scenes demanded authentic Boston locations that the crew shifted part of the shoot. The result was a hybrid, Toronto standing in for interiors while the real streets of Southie gave the film its soul. Robin Williams loved the L Street Tavern so much he called Weinstein and insisted, "We have to shoot here." Half the film was Canadian. All of it felt like Boston. Number 17, the real-life genius behind the chalkboard. The iconic scene, a janitor solving an impossible equation left on a hallway blackboard, didn't come from pure imagination. It was inspired by mathematician George Dantzig, who arrived late to a graduate statistics class, mistook two unsolved problems on the board for homework, and solved them both. That story circulated for decades as an urban legend about the power of not knowing something was supposed to be impossible, and it became the foundation for Will Hunting's entire character. Dantzig's professor told him to submit the solutions as his thesis, because they were that significant. He solved the impossible because nobody told him it couldn't be done. Number 16, the MIT professor who ended up on screen.
No, I was hoping for a kiss.
Well, I think we should just get out of the way now.
Right now?
No.
When Damon and Affleck needed someone to make the mathematics in their script believable, Nobel Prize-winning physicist Sheldon Glashow pointed them toward MIT professor Daniel Kleitman. Kleitman met with the pair, lectured them on combinatorics, which they barely understood, and helped shape the equations that would appear in the film. As a reward, the production cast him as an extra. Kleitman appears in the background of the scene where Will and Skyler share their first kiss. Kleitman later joked, "The screenplay won the Academy Award and the extras were positively reviewed. So I retired while I was on top. The math was real. The cameo was earned." Number 15. The ending nobody wrote. For months, Damon and Affleck couldn't figure out how their story should end. The original draft had Will dying at the hands of the same gang from the opening fight. Van Sant proposed killing Chucky in a construction site accident instead. Both endings were written and discarded. Then Affleck arranged a meeting with Terrence Malick, who offered a single, elegant suggestion. Let Will simply drive away, alone, chasing Skyler to California. The idea was inspired by Italian cinema, where a character leaving town was all the closure an audience ever needed. Malick told them, "In Italian movies, a guy just leaves town at the end, and that's enough." 3 failed endings, 1 quiet drive. That was all it took. Number 14. The frown seen around the world.
I just said to Matt, losing would suck and winning would be really scary, and it's really, really scary.
When Damon and Affleck accepted the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, the camera briefly cut to Minnie Driver in the audience. She wasn't smiling. Years later, Driver revealed the reason. Damon had ended their relationship just weeks before the ceremony. She attended the Oscars knowing her ex-boyfriend would be standing on that stage, celebrating the greatest night of his career. The camera caught the raw edge of that reality in a single, unguarded frame. Driver later confirmed the breakup had happened just before the ceremony and that Damon brought his new girlfriend. Hollywood's biggest night. And the camera found one person not celebrating. Number 13. The death scene that nearly ruined everything.
I think maybe I'll get up there and I'll knock on the door and you won't be there. No goodbye, no see you later, no nothing.
Early in pre-production, Gus Van Sant proposed a dramatic change to the script. He wanted to kill off Chucky Sullivan, crush him in a construction accident, to raise the emotional stakes of the final act. Damon and Affleck, trusting their director, tried writing it. The scene was dark, abrupt, and devastating. But when Van Sant read the finished pages, even he agreed it was a terrible idea. Chucky survived, and Ben Affleck got to deliver one of the most quietly powerful speeches in the entire film, the one about wishing Will would just be gone one morning. Affleck said they got the speech in 1 take, even though Van Sant shot 3, and everyone knew it was perfect the first time. The best decision they made was the scene they chose not to shoot. Number 12. The spy thriller nobody wanted.
Handle 80% of the intelligence workload. You're 7 times the size of the CIA.
We don't like to brag about
The first version of Good Will Hunting was not a character study. It was an action movie. The original script followed Will and his friends evading government agents across Boston, a genius on the run from the NSA, dodging surveillance and outsmarting federal operatives. Affleck later compared its tone to Beverly Hills Cop and Midnight Run. The therapy sessions and the love story existed, but they lived inside a thriller framework. It took Rob Reiner to identify the problem. There were 2 films fighting each other inside the same script, and only one of them mattered. Reiner told them bluntly, "The character study or the government thriller. One of them has to go." The NSA interview is the only scene that survived the original draft. Everything else was reborn. Number 11. Casey Affleck's unscripted genius.
All right.
What can I ask
Well,
for all here?
question.
Come on,
are you
stop.
fucking- I'm trying to clarify something. Probably
You're embarrassing.
The role of Morgan was written specifically for Casey Affleck by his brother and Matt Damon. But when production began, Casey initially refused the part. He wanted to make a documentary about the shoot instead. When he finally agreed to appear on camera, something unexpected happened. Casey improvised most of his dialogue. Damon, Affleck, and Van Sant all later admitted that his off-the-cuff lines were funnier and sharper than anything they had written for the character. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Van Sant all confirmed. Casey's improvised lines were much funnier and better than what had been originally written for him. The script won an Oscar, but Morgan's best lines were never in it. Number 10. The director who said no.
So when he came into the room, I was like, "Oh, I was just reading about you." And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I saw in a trade, you and your buddy sold a script for like 800 grand. What are you doing in here? Why would you audition for this movie? You got 800 grand.
Before Gus Van Sant ever touched the project, Ben Affleck approached Kevin Smith, the filmmaker behind Clerks, and asked him to direct Good Will Hunting. Smith had worked with Affleck before and understood his voice, but Smith turned the job down. He told Affleck the material deserved a better director than him and instead agreed to serve as executive producer. It was Smith who brought the script to Miramax, the move that ultimately saved the entire film from development limbo. Smith said the script deserved a better director, but his connection to Miramax was what got the film made. He didn't direct a single frame, but without him, the film never exists. Number 9, the director they actually wanted.
Enclave. You know, usually there's white and black smoke that goes out of the chimneys to tell you we have.
After Kevin Smith stepped aside, Miramax began assembling its own shortlist. At the very top, above every art house filmmaker and every rising talent in Hollywood, sat Mel Gibson. Fresh off the massive success of Braveheart, Gibson was the studio's first choice to direct a quiet character drama about a janitor from Southie. The pairing never materialized, but the fact that it was even considered reveals just how seriously the industry had started taking the script, and how wildly different the film might have looked under another vision. Van Sant, who eventually took the job, later called the screenplay a color-by-numbers script. If you just filled in the scenes as written, it would come to life. The studio wanted an epic. The script needed intimacy. Number 8, the character built from real pain.
Nights for when he wore his rings. He used to just put a...
Sean Maguire, the therapist who breaks through Will's defenses, wasn't built from textbooks or Hollywood archetypes. Damon and Affleck based him on 2 people from their own lives. Damon's mother, a professor at a community college, and Affleck's father. Both brought a specific emotional texture, warmth laced with hard-won wisdom, authority without arrogance. Robin Williams recognized that depth immediately. It's part of why his performance never feels like acting. It feels like a memory. Williams said, "What drew me was a guy trying to give back, an intelligent guy who admits he's not as brilliant as the kid but says, you don't know everything about certain things." The character was fiction. The pain behind it was not. Number 7, the studio that almost killed the film.
We had the sense that we were writing them, so we felt empowered.
The way we wrote the movie was exactly the way Jerry taught us to write in high school.
Castle Rock Entertainment bought the Good Will Hunting script for $600,000. Then the problems began. The studio demanded rewrites, pushed for a different creative direction, and when Damon and Affleck disagreed with their choice of director, Castle Rock put the project into turnaround. The terms were brutal. Find a new buyer willing to pay $1 million within 30 days, or lose the script entirely. Several executives took meetings just to tell Damon and Affleck to their faces that they would not be buying the film. Affleck said one such meeting inspired him to write a scene in his own film, Argo, a meeting where someone tells you no just to enjoy saying it. 30 days to save the script. The clock nearly ran out. Number 6. The stars they tried to replace them with.
Fine.
So do you ladies,
Come here often?
do I come here? I come here a bit. I'm here.
As the script circulated through Hollywood, studio executives kept arriving at the same conclusion. The writing was exceptional, but the writers were nobodies. Multiple studios pushed for Leonardo DiCaprio to play Will Hunting. Others suggested Brad Pitt. The assumption was always the same. A film this good needed a proven star, not 2 unknown actors from Cambridge. Damon kept pushing back, citing Sylvester Stallone's insistence on starring in Rocky as his guiding principle. He refused to hand over the role. Damon later said Stallone's story inspired him not to give up. If Rocky stayed, Will Hunting would too. They wanted a bigger name. The script wanted its author. Number 5. The trap hidden on page 60.
Undermine what I'm trying to do here.
Undermine.
This boy is at a fragile point right now. I do understand he is at a fragile point.
When Castle Rock stalled and the script entered turnaround, Damon and Affleck devised a test. On page 60 of the screenplay, they inserted a graphic, completely out of context scene. two straight male professors suddenly deciding to sleep together. They sent the script to every major studio. Not one executive mentioned the scene. Then they met with Harvey Weinstein at Miramax. Weinstein's first note was blunt. What the hell was that scene on page 60? In that single moment, Damon and Affleck knew they had found the only person in Hollywood who had actually read the entire script. Weinstein said, "I only have one really big note. About page 60. What the hell is that?" One scene that made no sense became the test that changed everything. Number 4. The ghostwriter. Rumor that wouldn't die.
You know, we're just really two young guys who were fortunate enough to be involved with a lot of great people whom it's coming upon us to, there's no way we're doing this in less than 20 seconds.
Almost from the moment Good Will Hunting premiered, a rumor began circulating. That legendary screenwriter William Goldman had secretly written the script. The logic was simple. How could two young, unproven actors produce something this polished? Goldman himself addressed the speculation head-on. He said the reason the rumor persisted was that nobody wanted to believe two good-looking guys actually wrote it. He had read the script as a favor and offered one piece of advice: lose the government subplot. That was the full extent of his involvement. Goldman said plainly, nobody wants to believe that these two cute guys wrote this script. He gave one note. Hollywood gave him a ghost credit he never earned. Number 3. The indie kid who stood beside Celine Dion.
Somehow, Johnny Walker ran Singapore.
Gus Van Sant had seen Elliott Smith perform in Portland coffee houses and knew his music belonged in the film. He placed Smith's songs throughout the soundtrack without asking first, then nervously invited the singer to his house to watch the finished movie. Smith said yes. Then he wrote an original song, Miss Misery, specifically for the closing credits. When the song earned an Oscar nomination, Smith was horrified. Producers told him if he refused to perform at the ceremony, they would hire someone else, reportedly Richard Marx. Smith showed up in a white suit, stood alone on stage with an acoustic guitar, and delivered a performance so fragile and honest that it became one of the most iconic moments in Oscar history. Sandwiched between Celine Dion and a billion-dollar spectacle he wanted no part of. Smith later said, "She was the nicest person I've met in a while," talking about Dion, who gave him a pep talk backstage before his performance. He didn't want to be there, and that's exactly why it mattered. Number 2, the lines Robin Williams never rehearsed.
Maybe you're perfect right now. Maybe you don't want to ruin that. But I think that's a super philosophy, Will. That way you can go through your entire...
Robin Williams needed a minimum of 7 takes to feel satisfied with a scene. But it wasn't repetition he was after. It was discovery. Each take was a different character. One pass, he'd channel Jack Nicholson. The next, Jimmy Cagney. Gradually, Sean Maguire would emerge from the chaos. The farting wife monologue, where Sean tells Will about his late wife's habit of breaking wind in her sleep, was entirely improvised. Damon's laughter was real. The camera shook because the operator was laughing too hard to hold steady. And the film's final line, after Sean reads Will's note about going to see a girl, was pure Williams. He smiled, looked down, and delivered 4 words that were never in any script. "Son of a bitch, he stole my line." Matt Damon confirmed. That was absolutely 100% Robin Williams ad-libbed. The screenplay won an Oscar, but the line everybody remembers was never written down. Number 1, the 5-year bet that changed everything.
And God, I know we're forgetting somebody. Whoever we forgot, we love you and we love you. Thank you so much.
It started as a college assignment. Matt Damon, sitting in a Harvard playwriting class, wrote the first act of a movie instead of a play. He failed the class. He moved to Los Angeles, reunited with Ben Affleck, and the two of them spent 5 years turning that failed assignment into a finished screenplay. Drinking beer, recording dialogue on a tape recorder, impersonating Morgan Freeman and Robert De Niro as placeholder voices for the roles they imagined. They were told no at every turn. They were nearly replaced. Studios wanted bigger names, safer bets, proven formulas. And then, on the first day of principal photography, Damon and Affleck stood behind the monitors and watched Robin Williams and Stellan Skarsgård perform one of their scenes, word for word, exactly as written. Both men started crying. 5 years of rejection, rewrites, and refusal. And there it was, alive on screen, spoken by actors they never dared dream would say the words. Damon later recalled, "In true Robin fashion, we did 60 takes. A failed homework assignment, a 5-year fight, and a moment behind the monitors that made all of it worth every single second." Good Will Hunting earned 9 Academy Award nominations. It won 2, Best Supporting Actor for Robin Williams and Best Original Screenplay for 2 unknowns from Cambridge who refused to let the industry rewrite their story. It grossed over $225 million worldwide on a budget that barely reached $16 million. But the numbers were never the point. The point was a janitor on a chalkboard, a therapist on a park bench, a best friend who loved someone enough to say, "I hope you're gone tomorrow." It was a film about brilliance trapped inside fear, and the people brave enough to unlock it. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more stories behind the stories that shaped cinema forever.